Jessica just joined us. I'm gonna let Jessica take it away first with our EOC update if she's able to get started.
Yep, sorry about that. I was pulled into another meeting. Thanks for hopping on, everybody. I just want to hopefully relay the severity of this event. I know many of us are still putting the pieces back together from 2 weeks ago. So this is pretty much, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but pretty bad case scenario for our community. Even with the little shifts that you may see on the news, we still are going to see pretty significant impacts, regardless if it goes a little bit more north or a little bit more south. So currently, what we're looking at, and this is going to change as some of the models and the hurricane hunters bring back some data, but potentially up to a category 3. There is some talk that it could be even a pinch higher. So we just want to make sure that you guys hear us say that. Some of the concerns that we're looking at this time, and again, this is subject to change, rainfall 5 to 8 inches up to 12 inches. So pretty significant rainfall for saturated areas. The rain is going to begin as early as Sunday, which I think is today. So we are going to see localized flooding, flash flooding potential. With this event, the forecast at this time is predicting up to or a little bit higher of 10-foot surge. That does not include any wave action. So the last event that we just had, Helene, the highest recorded surge was about 8.2. We're looking at over 10 feet. So pretty more significant, even higher than we saw last week. The other concern with this event that we didn't have in the last event is this is a direct impact, regardless if it's our area or around our area. So we're going to see some pretty high winds up to 130 miles per hour if it comes in at a 3. Again, that could get higher depending on the strength of the storm when it gets closer. So at this time, we expect the worst conditions to begin around Wednesday at 3 a.m., lasting through Wednesday at 7 p.m. But we know conditions will begin, really the winds, as early as Tuesday evening, and then that rainfall is already starting probably within today. So with that, there will be a press conference with all of this information coming. So some of this information is not quite out yet, but I think the press conference begins at 1:30. But we'll be looking at evacuations, level A through C, starting tomorrow. Some of our healthcare facilities will start doing their evacuations today. So shelters will be opening. We'll be opening some shelters tomorrow starting at noon, and then we'll be opening the rest of our shelters Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. So all of this should be coming out shortly. Just trying to look through my notes to see if there's anything I'm forgetting. I don't think so. So I think just, I know Dominique will probably talk about this, but she'll start collecting information from you all, especially those that we assist. So we really need you all to help us as you're planning for evacuations or any needs that you have. Again, this is a pretty significant event, our pretty bad worst case scenario. We'll keep pushing forward and getting creative with solutions and supporting each other, and all of us will continue to do the best we can. But however we can support you here, we're working towards that. Are there any questions? All right. Well, thank you guys for what you did, and we'll keep pushing forward together.
Thank you, Jessica.
All right, this is Dominique here. I did go ahead and make contact with all of our emergency shelters. And so with that update, I will be reaching out to a few more of you to get that planning going. We've already started the gears rolling for our A shelters, our A evac shelters. So similar to what we did last time with Salvation Army and also, excuse me, evacuating. We're looking at doing those for tomorrow afternoon. And then our B shelters will be moving forward with communicating those evac plans as those come out. So we did want to say after that 1:30 press conference, Jessica, please correct me if I'm wrong. Those shelters the rollout of those shelters will be posted at that time, which ones will be opening. I don't know if you're able to share any of that information on the call right now.
Yep, I don't want to jump the gun. We're looking at opening all of our shelters. So you guys are familiar with where our shelter sites are open. So again, we'll start with opening 6 tomorrow. Those will be the 6 that we standardly see: Gibbs, Largo, and Palm Harbor University, and then our 3 special needs shelters that we always open. So that would be Palm Harbor University, Building 19, John Hopkins, and Dunedin Middle School.
Thank you, Jessica. The reason why I want to make sure we brought that to your attention is I know there's street outreach teams on here that I'm hoping are able to get out today, definitely getting out tomorrow before we really get into the pending storm, to make sure that we're giving that message out to our unhoused residents.
I think Dominique, you might be frozen.
We're letting her know. She's right down the aisle from us. Give us just a second.
We
Sorry about
continue to work
that.
with our housed, those who are sheltered. With that being said, and mine is unstable, so I'm gonna turn my video on. I don't know when I got frozen. So are there any questions from shelters with evac plans beyond what we've talked about already this morning?
Dominique, you were, this is Victoria, you were saying that the street outreach and whatnot should start pushing out information. Do you think that street outreach should today start pushing out information about those 6 shelters, or should we wait until that official word comes out?
I believe we are good to start pushing out that messaging for those 6, with the additional shelters waiting for that information to really release the other locations. But we are good to go forward with those 6 scenes that were open for the last storm.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Arrow, you had a question as well?
Yeah, I know typically the like for the folks exiting or with the shelters evacuating, they get MREs and so forth. But is the messaging changing from 3 days to longer on the amount of food people should be bringing then, if it's starting tomorrow and possibly through Thursday? Or
so all of our storm shelters are prepared to serve 3 meals daily. But we do not do any sort of like dietary accommodations for some of those needs. So we always recommend people that bring food are able to bring those, especially the dietary snacks, things like that. But we do serve 3 meals and water at all of the locations.
I do.
Thank you. Jennifer, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a couple questions because this is the first time that we're evacuating to a shelter. So what are girls allowed to bring air mattresses?
Yes.
Okay.
So I can find in the chat, we do have some kind of like a list of what to bring and what not to bring. That's posted
Okay,
on our
that would be
website.
really helpful.
So I can find
Okay.
that. But yes, when people are evacuating into these shelters are promising a room and 3 meals. So there's not beds, cots, blankets, any of those items. So let me find that and I'll put in the chat.
Thank you. And then 2 more questions are obviously we can bring our own food. And are these and this might seem like a silly question, but I won't ask them again after this, I promise. But are these shelters, they can sustain a category 3 or 4 hurricane?
Yeah, this is Jessica. I can talk about that. So we don't have any of our shelters in evacuation zones. So surge is not a concern. And we meet with the state architect. There are standards that are nationwide as far as the buildings being able to withstand winds. So there are no concerns that these are safe spaces. We would certainly never put any folks or our folks in danger. So they've all been inspected. We've been meeting with the state architect year round. So there are no concerns with building safety.
Okay, that's so helpful. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then Helen, you had your hand up?
I did. And yet, I forgot my question. PSTA is probably part of my question, but I can't remember the rest of it. So just wanting to know when and if that will I know with this last one, buses weren't necessarily diverted. They were kind of just get on the bus where you can catch the bus to get to certain shelters. It's a little different when we open all the shelters. And so just wanted to find out about that, and if that message, if buses will be diverted, if we can message that in a way that people understand that, or if they're not going to be diverted, if we can message that so that we can kind of push people to shelter in a different way. Especially because so many people will be coming who have lost their cars and those kinds of things. So we're probably going to be knocking on doors saying, hey, you know, this is how you can get to shelter. So we just want to make sure we're able to give them the best information.
Yep. So I can talk about that. I can tell you at this point, the extra buses, if there are any extra buses, are really being diverted to the beach communities who are impacted to help ensure that those folks know to evacuate and have additional ways to evacuate out of those barrier island communities. So that's where it's being targeted, simply because we know that many of those structures are unsafe. There are people living in those structures. So I know there will be a targeted outreach into those communities with the additional buses. So I don't anticipate there would be anything additional that would be rerouting or anything. It would be the normal bus routes.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Helen. There was a note from Karen in the chat. Please ensure that mothers bring a safe place for their babies to sleep, like a pack and play, when going to shelter. Just wanted to read that out loud so that everybody saw it. And then we also had a question in the chat, and Gary's hand was up. And then Kathy, I think you might have a question as well. So we're going to go chat, Gary, Kathy, TV. Okay. So are we expecting 3 nights at the shelter is the question in the chat.
Sure. So I think it depends right on when you arrive at the shelter. At this time, and I'm just going back over my notes because there's so much information floating around in my head. We're anticipating conditions to leave the county Wednesday at 7 p.m. So obviously we don't plan on closing shelters probably at nighttime. So I would anticipate, and this is different than we've seen in the past, this is going to be a longer term sheltering stay. So I think as we prepare our clients and our folks to enter into a shelter, we need to be prepared to be there for longer than normal. Also, with the hazards and the impacts that are forecast, we may see some pretty extensive damage to our community, very extended power outages. Like I said, a lot of flooding, very high winds. And so it may be some time until we're able to even shut down shelters as a whole and move to kind of the next step. So we just want to really set that expectation that this is going to be different than any event we've experienced in Pinellas County really within the past 100 years.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I appreciate that. Gary, you had a question? Gary? All right, Gary. Oh, there you go.
How about now?
Can hear you now.
All right. Yeah, my tablet's giving me a little bit of a trouble. What I was saying is our list with the shelters. I've had some concern from some of our homeless community wondering, is the information with that list of what shelters will allow small manageable pets? I understand some pets are just too big for them to handle, but is that included with the information?
Yep. So our pet shelters are Gibb, Largo, and Palm Harbor University. They'll accept pets of any sizes, but folks should be prepared with food and all the other things they need, including a cage. If folks do not have those things, there will be very limited cages, etc., to borrow, but people should plan to bring what they need for their animals.
Also, people need to remember with our power outages that we had in our last storm, our infrastructure, sewage lift pumps. A lot of people don't know what that is, but basically it means that untreated wastewater is introduced into that flood water. So please be careful.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. And then I think it was Kathy, then TV, if I'm not mistaken. TV, if I've gotten that wrong, I apologize.
Yeah, I think I typed mine in just if the buses, and of course, street outreach is not available today because we're not working, but we'll get that out first thing. I will forward the list over to the list of sergeants and lieutenants so they can try to start getting people aware. And then, of course, we'll hit the meal sites first thing in the morning.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then, oh,
Sorry
go
about
ahead,
that.
Jessica.
We'll be running free. Of course, shelters aren't open yet, so that's not happening. But when that happens and shelters open, there will be riding free.
Thank you.
Thank you. TV?
Yes, thank you. I kept clicking on my face and it wasn't allowing me to unmute. I just had a question that came up during outreach for the last hurricane. We had somebody that we encountered with one of those trolleys with their items, and then they had 2 fishing poles, and they advised us that they were not allowed on the bus. So I just kind of wanted to get a little information if anyone's on the call that can let us know how we can guide these community members so that, you know, they're able to access the buses to evacuate.
We can reach out to PSTA. I know they're going to be a little more sensitive than in the past, knowing that many folks may bring a little bit extra due to the fact that they're concerned about losing the few things they had. So we'll make sure we continue to push that messaging. Of course, that's within reason, right? If we see capacity at our shelters start to fill up, you know, we may be snuggling in there pretty close. So I would say let's, you know, kind of use good judgment, but we'll make sure we pass that along to PSTA.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Pinellas County while we're all here together today?
I have one more question. I was just thinking, like just a safety concern, like do people just walk in or do they get checked if they were to have substances on them, or is that monitored if somebody was using substances in the shelter?
Yep, so that's a great question. We don't you know, inspect anybody's belongings or do any sort of inspection of that. We have law enforcement on site. The rules are posted, and so our shelter staff has been trained that if there is something going on to let law enforcement know. They're very familiar with that. And then I think Jennifer, we can get I think Dominique was has that on her list to reach out to you afterwards, just so that we can kind of talk through some of this stuff with your group, because I know you guys have a unique population.
Yeah, we chatted, but thank you so much. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer and Jessica. Arrow?
So if HRZ is going to evacuate, that includes safe harbor, correct? So we cannot be telling people to get out of the elements going there, correct? And where do they evacuate to?
So this is Dominique. We do work with Safe Harbor on their evacuation plan. I would not be directing anybody there as we do anticipate evacuating that location. Our locations do change, but they will be at one of the community shelters.
And Dominique, with that, I think Safe Harbor, and I'm not sure if the other shelters, if they have any of the cots that are higher off the ground, like I know we had one person that was hoping to go into a cabin this week at Pinellas Hope that has a neck thing that he cannot get off the ground on. So I don't know if some of those cots could maybe come to the other shelters. So for people that cannot sleep on the floor.
So the shelters individually can make those arrangements. I know, for example, Pinellas Hope saw that need and was able to bring all of their mattresses over.
Okay.
Pinellas Hope brought them over, and then those were returned back after the event. The residents were responsible for gathering them and distributing them with staff. And that was very successful, but obviously that's also takes a lot of man and people power. So the shelters are able to support that. We work with all of our shelters to also identify who special needs shelters may be. So those who may be on a bunk but may not be able to get up off the floor. That's all part of our discussions with shelters for evacuation. So with Haysh, we work through that and through the other shelters to see if someone needs special needs versus our general population.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the county while we are here today? Not hearing any in the immediate, are there any needs that providers on this call have identified or concerns that you would like to discuss?
So Victoria, one thing that I will say for us is that I know we had our city pretty covered last time with Helene in doing outreach. We will not have that. We might not have that same coverage this time. And so if the offer is there, if you all are going out into the community, could you please just connect with me and let me know? Because we might not have that, because we've got to reach out to those in neighborhoods who were not whose cars were flooded as well, who are in evacuation zones, to get them the information. We still have some people in our area that don't have power, so we need to get a hold of them as well.
That makes sense, Helen. And our team will get together and then we'll reach out. We'll definitely reach out. Absolutely. Jennifer?
The last thing I just wanted to mention in general, and I said something to Dominique, is that, I can help as well for any mental health needs or just any needs at all when I'm in the shelter, because I can't just sit still. So I can help in the shelter.
It is a wonderful, wonderful option while there is chaos going on and people are traumatized by what happened just a week ago. So that's really fantastic. I don't know if you've seen in the chat, but Karen is also saying thank you, Jennifer. Helen?
My thing that I did remember now, I told you it was transportation related. Is there special pickup, like at special locations? I don't know if maybe I missed that. I know I asked about PSTA, but are there specific areas where people can gather that they will be picked up?
So as far as PSTA, they will not be running any additional routes with the exception of along the barrier island.
Thank you. That's a great question, Helen, and thank you very much for answering, Jessica. Any other questions or concerns or needs?
This is Dominique. I did also want to mention, piggybacking off of what Jennifer said, because thank you she offered that up earlier. Volunteers are always able to plug into the shelters. So if you or your family are finding yourself needing to evacuate to one of our school shelters, if you're wanting to get plugged in for mealtime or, greeting people, walking people to their rooms, all of those things, those are all needs that we have staffing for, but we absolutely welcome community support, and we do log those and plug those in when we can. So those shelters are available for everybody, you all included. Please keep that in mind.
Yes, that is a great point. Thank you very much, Dominique. Any other questions, concerns, or needs? Not hearing or seeing any. I know that everybody has my email address, but I'm going to put my email address. I'm going to put Megan's email address and Daisy's email address in the chat. If you need anything, I'll put my phone number there as well. Please do not hesitate to reach out and let us know. Karen?
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to do a reminder. If you have clients that you're working with that have significant mobility issues, please make sure that they go to the special needs shelters. During most of our activations, we are able to move people. So if they arrive at a general population shelter and they have significant needs, we're sometimes able to move them to the most appropriate shelter. Due to timing, that may be a little bit more challenging this time, and it's usually mobility. So if someone is in a wheelchair, they're having difficult with mobility, I would please try to direct them to the special needs shelters. Of course, we will take care of whoever comes our way, but if we can make sure that they get to the best place for their care would be ideal. And that's the same if you're evacuating your shelters. We just need to make sure that you're identifying, and Dominique's going to work with each of you on the call down, but you're identifying who needs special needs so that we can get them to the most appropriate place.
Thank you very much, Karen. And then Dominique put in the chat, special needs considerations. Residents of all ages who have special needs are eligible for the program. Some examples include, but are not limited to, needing oxygen, requiring assistance with routine care and medications, requiring mobility assistance, and dependence on electricity. And then related to that, we had a question in the chat. Will they have to register for special needs shelters?
So I'm working with all of the homeless shelters, they will not need to register. They'll work with me directly as I'm coordinating that transport. So no, because I'll end up clogging the line. I will tell you that. So we'll do that coordinated transport. If you have any that are unhoused, that are needing that special needs shelter, they can call into the CIC and get registered for that. But honestly, again, when people are going there, they're going to be assessed to see if that's an appropriate fit for them, if they have the means to get there.
Thank you very much. Great questions. Can I also please ask, while we're talking about, things, if your organization already knows that you will be shut for a certain number of days, whatever that is, could you put that in the chat for us or something like that and just let us know? It's important that we know who is available when. So thank you very much for that. And then do we have any other questions, comments, or concerns? No? Dominique, was there anything else that you wanted to add, or Jessica, that you wanted to say?
That's it. Thank you guys for what you're doing. We'll get through this together.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for answering my calls. Keep answering. We'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care and be safe.
Thank you all very much. Be on the lookout for the provider email with resources and everything. And then be safe.